Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show. In this episode I'm going to be reviewing the Week 3 matchup where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went to Minnesota to face the Vikings. Well, this game was an absolute disaster for the Bucs. It really couldn't have been much worse. As per usual, I'll be going through what I consider to be the key moments in the game, analysing both teams' game plans, how things generally went, and where these teams go from here. And as always, not much mention of stats, not too fussed about those. It's all about what I saw with my own two eyes. So we'll start with a sort of general summary, I guess. Yeah, Buccaneers wise, this was an absolute disaster. Went in pretty banged up on defence, couple of players missing through illness in Baker and Jaquiz Smith, Quan Alexander missing, Brent Grimes missing, and frankly they really ended up being far more significant than they should have. This game showed the Buccaneers do have a lack of depth on the defensive side of the ball, which is a concern certainly had going into the season. Got off to one of the slow starts that we've seen over the last couple of years, ended up giving themselves far too big a hole to climb out of. The injuries only got worse during the game. Gerald McCoy being sort of in and out of the game with his ankle that he's been dealing with. It sounds like Levante David's got a high ankle sprain. The fact that was suffered during garbage time makes that even more frustrating. TJ Ward apparently hurt his hamstring during the game. Really couldn't have gone much worse for them in that regard. And really for me, this game, whilst Jameis is going to garner a fair bit of blame for a couple of really poor decisions in this game, this falls on the defence. They had a very poor showing. The concerns with the Bucs defence heading into the year, other than depth, were the edge rush, which was not present in this game. Riley Reef did a good job on the left side. Only real pressure the Buccaneers managed to generate was up the interior, and that was pretty much exclusively Gerald McCoy. The corners just regularly got torched. They were playing far too soft. Vernon Hargreaves once again guilty of this, which he has been through much of his career. He's far too often just letting guys run the first 7-8 yards of a route and then kind of making tackles. I think he needs to start playing more aggressively. Saw him get beat. All the corners getting beat in this game. The coverage was a major problem. The Buccaneers weren't able to generate any kind of pressure on Keenum on the outside. He pretty much could sit in the pocket for as long as he wanted on several of these plays. The corners could not handle Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. Missed tackle for a massive touchdown at the start of the third, which pretty much put this game out of reach. And the general, I mean, to some degree, the Vikings have to, well, they absolutely deserve a lot of credit. They gave a really good offensive performance in this game. Case Keenum, who for some reason just owns the Buccaneers, which I'm still not entirely over accepting that as a fact, but that just seems to be how it is. He had a great performance, made a few iffy throws in the first half, but did more than enough to put this game away. Buccaneers constantly getting torched on the deep ball. It started on the first drive with a massive play down the left sideline to Adam Thielen. Coverage wasn't bad on that play. It was a really good throw and catch. Stephon Diggs with that aforementioned huge play to begin the third quarter. That was off of a very poor 12 men on the field penalty. Nowhere near enough hustle off. I can't remember who it was attempting to get off the field, but not even close. That's a big mistake, and then a missed tackle on Diggs that allowed him to just run the length of the field. That was another really bad play to give up. Diggs made a really good touchdown grab over Hargreaves. That one was a great play by the offense. Hargreaves was in reasonable position for it, but Diggs made some great catches. He was dominant in this game. It was a big catch in between a safety and a corner, wide open in the zone. It was a poor throw from Keenum, great diving catch from him. Thielen was having a big game as well. The second half, the Vikings really didn't do too much on offense. almost allowed the Buccaneers back into this game. But to be honest, they seem to just have the Buccaneers' defence number. The Buccaneers didn't disgrace themselves in run defence. I thought they did a pretty good job bottling up Dalvin Cook. He managed to break a couple, but all in all, especially considering the amount of time the Buccaneers' defence was on the field, I think they did a pretty good job in the run game. Struggled to get too much going up the middle outside of a couple sort of 8-9 yarders. So they did a reasonable job there. But this passing game absolutely shredded them. People need to start giving Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs a lot more credit. These are two legitimate wide receivers. I did say heading into the year, I thought this team needed to show that they've got a deep threat. I think Adam Thielen is that guy. Running really good, really nice double move early in the game for that first deep throw. He's a good route runner. He shows good hands. As I say, Diggs has some of the best hands in the league, in my opinion, and he's made some great contested catches already this season, like several, and it's very early in the season. Any kind of 50-50 balls in this game, he came down with. Dalvin Cook had another rock-solid performance. Buccaneers could not cover him at all coming out of the backfield. He made a number of big plays. I'd say he had more of an impact as a catcher than as a runner. He did an okay job in the run game, but as I say, the Buccaneers bottled him up reasonably well. But coming out of the backfield, a few third down conversions. Case Keenum managed to get a couple himself sort of running. And the Bucs did struggle with contain throughout this game, and say the guys on the edge just really got dominated in this one. So that was a big issue. It made the Vikings' lives a lot easier. And in general, it feels to me like the Vikings, they could have put more points up in this game. They took their foot off the gas in the second half. It almost ended up, biting them, but frankly, this Bucs defense, they were able to come up with a couple of plays there in the second half when the Vikings went a bit more conservative. But across the course of the first half, the Vikings were pretty much doing what they wanted. Too many big plays. I mean, there must have been 4 or 5 plays well down the field that were made in this game. The safety play was pretty poor outside of, I think there was a really nice play TJ Ward made in the end zone after the second. Was it after the second Jameis pick? I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it was a really nice play TJ Ward made. Other than that, the safeties were ineffective in this game. All in all, absolute disaster for the Buccaneers secondary. Clearly massively lacking in talent without Brent Grimes. Vernon Hargreaves still not there yet. He's not quite got the mentality, I think, of a number one corner. The way he plays is just not aggressive enough. I need to see that improving. Buccaneers tackle quite well, though. I've got to look for positive somewhere. And I thought Gerald McCoy, especially considering the ankle, had a really nice game. I think him and Levante both managed to make some plays, as is often the case. But beyond that, this team didn't show much. Really did struggle on that side of the ball. The injuries continue to mount up. It's got to be a big concern for this team. Vikings, they can come out of this offensively feeling great. No, these receivers are legitimate. I'm convinced the pair of them are high-end players. If they can get anything out of Laquan Treadwell and Rudolph can step up his game a little bit, this is a really talented team. Dalvin Cook has shown already that he's going to be a star in this league, which I did not doubt heading into the draft. Incredibly talented player. He runs tough. Vikings, I do feel got a little bit of luck in terms of, I do think that Dalvin Cook fumbled on that initial touchdown. And I think they got a couple other fairly favourable calls, particularly in the secondary. I thought defensively they were incredibly aggressive. Could have had some more calls there, but don't consider that me complaining. I just feel that was maybe a factor in the game. But at the end of the day, the Vikings were the better team and absolutely deserved this victory. So don't consider that me just be a sort of a crying Bucs fan. Vikings, no doubt, were the better team on Sunday. And when you've got no answer to Case Keenum, you've got to really kind of question what you're doing. It's not like the Buccaneers were bringing huge amounts of pressure or anything. It's just, Keenum threw some really good balls. All the 50-50 balls in this game seem to go the Vikings' way. It's just one of those, and their game plan was pretty effective. Clearly, Dalvin Cook, a big part of the game. They played a pretty balanced game, and I think they got the Buccaneers, caught them kind of off guard. I don't think Mike Smith was expecting to see the Vikings being quite as aggressive down the field as they were. Almost any opportunity for a one-on-one matchup downfield, Case Keenum took the opportunity and made the most of it, which has to be a concern. And the secondary's got to do a better job. And as a result, the Vikings ended up being able to play a really balanced game, and they were able to be effective. The short passing game was effective, and the deep game was because of the lack of pressure. The run game probably wasn't as successful as they'd like, but when you can pass as effectively as they did in this game, it's not necessarily a huge deal. They did enough to just keep the clock ticking in that second half, made it difficult for the Buccaneers to come back in this one. And all in all, a great performance. The Buccaneers tried to be a bit too aggressive against the run for me, and really they've got kind of, I think, just trust in that defensive line to funnel guys and then react. It is a fast team. Instead, they were quite aggressive with it. I think they got burned over the middle of the field early in the game as a result, and attempting to play a bit too much one-to-one outside against these talented receivers. And really, without Grimes in there in particular, this Bucs team did not have the personnel to do it, and they got burned. On the other side of the ball, the offense, really slow start for Tampa. Jaquiz Rodgers, the Buccaneers' run game, never a factor. They were getting stuffed early in the game, much like we saw against the Bears last week. Jaquiz Rodgers is an okay player, but he's not by no means a world beater, and this offensive line hasn't been great in that regard for the last couple of years. Ali Marpet had some struggles in this game, a couple of off snaps. There was one that they said was, I think, the third one where Jameis kind of fumbled about a bit. That one was on Jameis. But that was a bit of an issue. A couple of really ugly broken plays as a result of that. And the offensive line struggled as a whole. The Vikings didn't have to do much to generate pressure in this game. Linval Joseph had a big day. He was able to get pressure up the middle. Everson Griffin had another big day. Got a sack on a ridiculous play call where the Buccaneers decided to just let him come free off. Well, I don't think they let him come free off the edge, but no one did anything. Got an easy sack on a third down. That was just a horrific play call, particularly on 3rd and 2. So was very unhappy with that one. But they got a lot of pressure throughout this game. It let them sit. They had such a lead that really it's bordering on hard to tell what the game plan was going in, because it immediately kind of just shifted into protecting a lead. Buccaneers showed no ability to and no willingness to run the ball once they fell significantly behind in this one. The first 3 Buccaneers drives were like a good drive for a field goal, and then a bunch of 3 and outs, and then it was half time. It's pretty much how that went. So as a result, the Vikings were on the field a lot. Buccaneers defense got tired over the course of the game, and the Vikings spent the majority of the second half in kind of a prevent defense. They were contesting every ball. They were very aggressive at the line of scrimmage, the corners in this game, playing Mike Evans very physically, playing Deshaun Jackson very close at the line. I don't think the Buccaneers did a good enough job exploiting that, but it was difficult to do so because the Vikings were generating so much pressure that throwing anything intermediate or deep was difficult. The 2 safeties were sitting back pretty deep, and I feel they both had really good games for the Vikes. Harrison Smith, as you'd expect. And the linebackers did a pretty solid job overall in coverage. Buccaneers didn't look to go over the middle too often in this one as a result. And as a result, the Bucs game plan, which I think is always going to generally be fairly similar heading into games, they're going to try and do some power running, set up some play actions, and they just weren't able to do that. Ended up Jameis having to carry the load. Outside of it was a very Jameis Winston game where you saw some great plays and a couple of real bad ones. The first interception was a reasonable decision. Deshaun Jackson one-on-one with Trey Waynes, where Waynes comes up with the interception in the end zone on a deep ball. I think it's a reasonable decision. It's just a really poor throw. I think you can see in the route Deshaun Jackson beating him over the top and sort of heading towards the inside. Jameis just sort of throws it straight up, looking to get it over the head of Waynes, underthrows it, and I'm not sure Deshaun Jackson's even looking for the ball at that point. I think he was expecting it maybe to come out to if he'd broke to his right, and if that had happened, I think the Bucs score a touchdown on that play. Instead, that ended up an interception. The second one was just horrific. That was a real Jameis kind of bonehead play. That's the one where you might see the video if you didn't watch this game of Mike Evans going a bit nuts on the sideline, where Jameis sort of throws. I think he's anticipating a corner out from Deshaun Jackson, who gets maybe interfered with a little, but frankly, it's an appalling decision, and the throw is well off. So I can understand the no flag there, because it's not having an impact on the play. It ends up going straight to the safety, and that was the play that really kind of killed off the Buccaneers' chances in this one. Before that, outside of they had a nice touchdown drive, the previous one ending in a Cameron Brate touchdown, where again I feel like there was a no flag on there, because I thought there was clearly a hit to a defenseless receiver on that play, but that one didn't get called. Which is, it happens. But yeah, that was just a horrific decision. I can understand Mike Evans' anger. I was echoing it. At that point, if the Buccaneers had scored a touchdown, they'd have been undeservedly in the game, only 7 points down with plenty of time left on the clock. But yeah, that one was really poor. And then the third interception that he threw, they summed it up on the broadcast. Evans is one-on-one with a backer in the slot. It's the right read, but because Jameis is just staring him down for the entirety of the play, you've got both safeties converging. He throws a jump ball to Evans. The throw's a little bit high, and as a result, Evans gets hit as he's going up for it. The ball pops up into the air, and it's an easy interception for Harrison Smith. That one, at that stage in the game, again, I'm not going to put huge emphasis on it, but it's just the worrying thing is the technique there. The utter staring down of a player like that is never good to see. Deshaun Jackson had a big game. I thought Evans played pretty well as well. Xavier Rhodes, once again, he's shown you can make an argument he's the top corner in the league right now, the way he started this season. I mean, 2 weeks in a row doing the job he's done on Evans and Beckham. Of course, giving up some catches, but it's all short, underneath stuff. He's playing guys incredibly physical. He's doing excellent work. Evans made some tough catches in this game. I thought he did a fine job as well. But that was a really good matchup. Thoroughly enjoyable to watch. Rhodes probably just about getting the best of it, but both players contributing. Deshaun Jackson got the big touchdown in this game. That was a great effort by him. And yeah, I thought the Buccaneers moved the ball really well in the second half as a result of the Vikings kind of, let's say, taking their foot off the gas. It gave them a shot to get back in this, but ultimately it was kind of as I said, the issues that you have with Tampa over the last couple of seasons, every single one of them reared their head in this game. The slow start, the occasional boneheaded decision by Jameis. There were a few others in the course of the game. One where he was pressured, this was in the first half, on the first drive. He's pressured, he can throw the ball out of bounds. Instead, he ends up throwing it sort of towards a pile of players. Cam Brate comes up with it for like a -1 yard catch. And yeah, it's one of those where it's a huge risk to even make that throw. And there's not even any upside to it. It's just, that was a real poor decision. The second interception, the third interception was bad execution. And a couple other sort of plays like that over the course of the game. So that was a bit concerning. When this team falls behind at the minute, I just don't think James's his decision making is good whilst the team is in a good position. Once he starts forcing it, that's when these mistakes happen. He is absolutely like Brett Favre in that regard. Run game once again non-existent. This team needs Doug Martin back, and they need the line needs to play better than it did today. From the Vikings side, defensively, great performance. Defensive line was dominant throughout. Didn't really get the sack numbers, but pressure was constant. They've made Jameis have to hurry up his reads. I think they pressured him into some of the bad decisions that he made. The corners played tough. Already mentioned Rhodes. Safeties played a great game. And thought Trey Waynes did an okay job. I'm not sure the game plan they had for Deshaun Jackson, playing him as close as they did, was a good one, and it really kind of didn't work out. He did manage to make a few big plays in this game. But surprising the lack of production from the tight ends for the Buccaneers so far. Drafting OJ Howard and having Cam Brate don't seem to be targeting them too often, which I think is partly James has had his struggles throwing the ball over the middle of the field to this point in his career. I think that's something the team needs to look to get resolved. This was a very problematic performance, emblematic of all the weaknesses really that this Buccaneers roster has. As for the Vikings, it goes to show this is an incredibly talented team. Defensively, we knew what they were heading into the season. It's played out that way thus far. They've been really impressive. They've got talent at every level. And the offensive side, they've got the weapons. The offensive line play, if it can just be decent, it was a bit of an issue last week against Pittsburgh. But the other two games, it's been solid. It's definitely better, and with it, they've got some good weapons. Dalvin Cook it was a masterstroke drafting him where he did. Never should have fell to the second round. I mean, no way. And yeah, they look set to go at this point. In terms of where both teams go from here, the Buccaneers have another tough defensive matchup next week as they head they head home and they face. Or are they in New York? I can't actually remember. I'm going to have to check that out. Apologies for this. Either way, it's another tough matchup against another very good defence. So that's it is at the Ray J. So that's a positive for them. It's a tough matchup, especially if Janoris Jenkins is back. Get to see him on Mike Evans. The one positive for the Bucs is that this Giants offense is still having major problems, even if they did seem to kind of figure some things out late against the Eagles. Buccaneers need to get some of these defenders healthy. The depth is not good enough for this unit, and this offense, it still feels like it's somewhat coming together with Doug Martin there. The run game's not going to be consistent enough. The O-line's not great, and at the minute they are relying on Jameis Winston a bit too much on the offensive side of the ball. Need to be a bit more balanced. So that's going to be a big one next week. I think they really do need to win that game with the Patriots coming up after that. Can't have a slow start to the season like they have over the last decade basically. I can't even remember the last time the Buccaneers had a really fast start to a season. I think it was the last season under John Gruden. Whereas the Vikings, huge game for them next week. It's probably one of the highlights of week 4 as they face off against the Lions, who looked in pretty good losing to the Falcons yesterday. So that's going to be a really good game. They've probably been, whilst they're both tied with the Packers, I think they've both arguably been the more impressive teams. The Vikings certainly looking like the most complete team. So that's going to be a really good game. The Vikings have to feel good about things. I still feel like Keenum's too limited and he can't play the Buccaneers every week. So if they can get Bradford back healthy in the next couple of weeks and the knee can keep itself keep itself so that he can play and play effectively, they've got to be one of the favourites in the NFC right now. They really are a promising looking team. We know this defence is legitimate, and if the offensive line and quarterback play can be of a sustained level, they really are a very talented and balanced team. So there you have it. That's my review of this game. Total disaster for the Buccaneers. Real solid performance by the Vikings. Hopefully the Buccaneers can get healthy, and we'll see how things go next week. So thank you very much for watching. As always, if you've got any comments, let us know. What did you think of the game? I've got the comment section below, the Cover Zero Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. So give us a shout. Always happy to talk football. Got the weekly podcast coming up. It's going to be a live episode, hopefully, on Wednesday. So that'll be well worth checking out. Also, more game reviews, game previews. So check those out on the channel. If you can like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. Be greatly appreciated. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and go Bucks.